So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this event, which is hosted by Guide Dogs. My name's Claire Devine, and I'm a Regional Volunteer Advisor for Guide Dogs. So today, we'll hope you'll find out what it means to be a volunteer puppy raiser for Guide Dogs. And you'll be hearing from a variety of speakers who will be sharing their experience of the organisation and particularly the role of puppy raiser. And then we'll be finishing with a Q&A, so you can ask our guests any questions you have about being a puppy raiser or about guide dogs in general. So first up today, we have Terry, who is a guide dog owner, who is here with his gorgeous dog, Spencer, and he's going to share his story with you. So over to you, Terry.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Spencer. He's a Black Lab Golden Retriever Cross. And he was sponsored by Marks and Spencer's, hence his name Spencer, and he's my first guide dog. Back in 2018, I started to lose my sight, and despite lots of different treatments and technologies, within 6 months of starting that, then I was registered blind. So my sight deteriorated quite quickly. With that, my life changed an awful lot in terms of it was like I had to start to learn everything again. I couldn't walk in a straight line without walking into things, without bumping into things. I could no longer go out by myself and feel safe. So things that I used to take for granted, like jumping in the car or getting on the bus and going into town and calling for a coffee and things like that, became such a scary experience, so much so that I got to a point where I didn't want to go out anymore because life was just too scary. I would trip down curbs all the time. I'd walk into things, I'd walk into people. And if I did venture out and go for a coffee, then I couldn't find where the counter was. I couldn't find a table or a chair to sit at by myself, and I just felt totally hopeless. I didn't want to see friends anymore either, because I became quite, it's hard to say really, but I became quite embarrassed at the man that I'd actually become, because I didn't feel like I was who I was before I lost my sight, because I felt useless and I felt that I was a burden to everybody because I couldn't do anything on my own anymore. And I'm a grown man. I couldn't join in conversations with people because when you can't see people's facial expressions or anything. So somebody could be smiling or raising their eyes or making body gestures, and I couldn't see that. So I wasn't part of anything anymore. And I got to a point where I got quite depressed about it all. And I would stay at home, and I'd be in the house for weeks on end without going out, and just waiting and praying that when my partner got back from work, that he wasn't too tired to go out with me and take me out for 5-10 minutes. And life became very insular. People stop asking you if you want to go out after a while when you always say no. I used to always say yes to everything. And then the night before, I would make an excuse not to go. And it was because I was embarrassed. I didn't want people to see this man that I'd become. I didn't want people to see this fumbling person that couldn't even find his cup on the table, that couldn't find his food on a plate, couldn't walk by himself. And it became unbearable. I got to a point where actually, you know, I wanted to jump off, if you like, of life's roundabout, because life just really wasn't worth living anymore for me as a person. I told my partner of 23 years that we needed to split, because all the things that we planned to do, grow old together, were not now possible, because I was just this thing that was sat at home on his own, depressed, angry, fed up, and just without, nothing could motivate me anymore because I couldn't do anything. But then I got in touch with Guide Dogs, And I didn't know whether I was actually blind enough to be lucky enough to be matched with a guide dog. But the lady on the phone who spoke to me gave me loads of information, and she asked me if I wanted to take it to the next step where somebody would actually come out and talk to me physically. She said, or you can of course think about what we've said and come back later. But I knew at that point, if I said no at this point, I wouldn't ring back. I just wouldn't. I was in that place where this was a last desperate attempt for help. So we took it to the next stage. And a year later, I got matched with Spencer. I got this amazing telephone call that said, we think we've got a match for you. And if it is a match, things are going to happen pretty quickly. So the following day, they brought Spencer to meet me. And when he came, I was sat in the kitchen and they said, don't worry if he doesn't show you much interest, he's going to have a mooch around. And he didn't show me much interest at first. He came and had a sniff, and then he went to sniff everything else around in the house, and then came back to me. And we sat on the floor together, and he was cuddling me, and he was kissing me, and it was just remarkable. And instantly I thought, oh my God, this could be it. And the next thing was we were out on a matching walk. So Peter, my GDMI, the instructor that came with Spencer, put Spencer's harness on, showed me how to hold his handle, and he said, I just want you to walk in a straight line with him, and I'm going to give you some directions. I'm going to tell you what to say to him. And I just said to Spencer, forward. And oh my God, for the first time in 2.5 years almost, I felt like I could actually walk with some confidence. He just walked straight forward, and then Peter would say to me, just walk with him, Terry, because in a moment he's going to go slightly to the left, or it's going to go slightly to the right, because there's a lady with a pram coming towards you, or there's a bin in the middle of the pavement, or there's a lamp post. So just follow him. And he was like a dream. He just weaved me in and out, in and out. I didn't even know that those obstacles were there. Usually with a cane, I would have to find them and hit them with my cane, and then try and negotiate my way around and try to work out what they are. With Spencer, it was like, for the first time, I could hold my head up. I could hear what was going on around me. I could smell the smells of the flowers and everything else, whereas I hadn't been able to do that for over 2 years. And for that brief moment, it just felt like, actually, the fact that I couldn't see anymore didn't actually matter that much, because with him by my side, it made the whole difference. I felt free, and it felt absolutely amazing. We had to stop for a moment because I got a little bit emotional, like I am now, really, because the impact of Spencer for those 10 minutes was immense. And I just kept thinking, my God, if he can do this for me in 10 minutes, what's the rest of my life going to be like? It's just going to be awesome. So at that point, lockdown happened, the first lockdown. So I only had 2 days training, and then it had to stop. But they let me keep Spencer at home with me. And we did things like obedience, and we grew this amazing bond together. And then when we could restart training, I trained from home. So every day for 6 weeks, my instructor would come out, and we'd go and we'd do our walks, and we'd learn everything. And what Spencer does for me is the most amazing thing in the world. Every single day we go out, every single morning, I cannot wait to wake up and see what the day is going to bring. We go on buses, we go on trains, we go on planes, we've been on cruise ships together. He's my best friend. He's my eyes. He makes everything possible. He makes me feel human again, and he makes me feel valid again. He'll find things for me, like he'll find every curve for me, so I never trip up anymore. I never walk into anything anymore. He'll find the buttons for me to press at the crossings, so I know where the crossings are. He'll find a table for me, an empty table and a chair when I'm in a cafe, so I can do everything by myself. Just need, Spence, come and sit down. I can do everything by myself, just with Spencer. and it feels surreal. The sight loss for me now is an inconvenience. That's all it is, because with Spencer, anything's possible. And it's only because of people like puppy raisers that make this possible. If it wasn't for them, then I don't think I'd be here, because I didn't like it. I didn't like the world that I was living in. But Spencer makes it a joy. Spencer makes it just amazing. I call him my 2020 hero, because that's what he really is. And the knight in black shiny armor. And honestly, he's just incredible. And the people, all the people, the volunteers, the friends, the supporters, the staff, they make it all possible. And I just hope that they realise what a huge difference this makes, to be able to live my life the way that I choose to live my life, to be able to go out independently and not feel a burden to anybody. I'm living and loving the best life ever. I couldn't wish for a better life. I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change anything for the world, because Spencer is my world. And I just want you to know that if you do join this family, the Guide Dog family, and become a puppy raiser, that the work that you're doing is immense. And for people like me, it gives us our life back. They call them life changers. He's not just my life changer, he's my life saver. He really is. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you for listening. And if you've got any questions at all, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. I don't think anybody can fail to be completely moved by your story and inspired by what you and your lovely dog, Spencer, have achieved. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Very humbling to hear that. So next, I'd like to hand over to Rebecca. Rebecca is one of my colleagues at Guide Dogs, and she is a puppy development advisor. So in that role, puppy development advisors manage and support our puppy raisers. So I'll hand over to you, Rebecca.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. And Terry, again, a huge thanks. That's incredibly inspiring. I'm fairly new to Guide Dogs, which means anything under a year is new, because it seems once you join, you never leave. But honestly, Terry, I think that's probably been the most inspiring thing that I've heard. So yeah, it makes a big difference, because raising puppies isn't always easy, and there's challenges, and we need constant reminders of why we're doing it, and that's you. And I might be in touch to borrow you for one of my puppy raisers sometime in the future. So thank you. But yeah, so I'm located up in the northeast. That doesn't matter. The role is UK wide. My day-to-day role is supporting puppy raisers, so I can bring the role a little bit more to life for you today. For some of you, it may sound really interesting, and it's something you would like to find out more about. So we'll make sure to signpost you as to where to get that information. For some of you, it might just be interesting to be aware of the role, or it might be you can think of a friend or family that would suit it quite well. I will just mention a little bit of sort of flag in the sand at this point. If the role sounds good, but it sounds a bit too involved, because it's a very time-heavy role, we do have a lighter version of it. We do ask for people to foster our dogs, which means look after them for a holiday board. It might be one of our puppy raisers is going on holiday and they need a week's cover, and that is in itself a volunteer role. So I just want to plant that little seed in case any of today just seems that, yeah, no, sounds good, but too much for me. But yeah, I've just done a couple of notes as to the most important aspects, I think, of the role. Obviously, any questions at the end, I'd absolutely welcome them. But I think the first thing to do is just to describe it. So our puppy raisers are volunteers. So the entire role is on a volunteer basis, which when you hear about it is pretty phenomenal. They will take one of our dogs in at usually around 8 weeks into their home, and they will raise that puppy fully until it is around, at the earliest would be 12 months. Usually puppies move on to their next stage at around 14 months. So that's the first thing of note. It's a long period of volunteering. I think it's possibly in the guide dogs our most involved role, but with that obviously comes incredible benefits, experiences, and a connection, unlike I think a lot of our other roles. So kind of 8 weeks to 14 months that would be in the puppy raiser's home. Obviously part of the process would be myself or the version of me in your area coming out to meet you, to check that your home is somewhere that is suitable. Obviously that's just in regard to the obvious, that the garden's secure, that the location is suitable, and we're obviously very open if someone's willing to make adaptations to suit that, you know, we can wait for that to happen. Within the role then, in terms of the money side of things, we pay for the dog's food the whole period. We pay for all the medical bills the full period. Because of that, it's important that we authorise those, but that's something that we get into on a one-to-one basis. We provide the equipment, but I can't say that there are no costs incurred, because of course people like to buy nice beds, vet bedding, toys, chews, that kind of thing. So it is reasonable to expect that there is that financial outlay within the volunteer role, but certainly all the basics are covered by us. And again, some people quite like the fact that they can have the dog for that. It's a long period, yes, but in terms of a dog's full life, it's a shorter period. So we do attract a lot of people that maybe have had a dog in the past, missed that dog in the home, but for whatever reason don't want the sort of 14, 15-year commitments. And I say that as someone with a 14-year-old Jack Russell behind me. And it's a big, big commitment. We ask you really then mainly for time, for your home, for patience, because I know there'll be various levels of sort of dog experience in the room, but yes, our dogs are beautifully bred. Yes, you get a lot of support. Yes, their temperaments are usually absolutely gorgeous, but puppies are hard work. Maybe I should say a lot of work. I don't know if hard is fair, but a guide dog puppy will have a poop in your kitchen before they learn that it's best to poop outside. They will have a little nibble of things until they're redirected to nibble something appropriate, etc. Those of you that have had dogs, all those kind of trials and tribulations you would expect to go through, but with that support and with the fact that, you know, there is that sort of foster role, that if you wanted a couple of weeks off, if you wanted to go on holiday, we would step in and help you with that. There has been this year launched a fantastic training program. It's all positive reinforcement training, as you'd imagine. Everything we do to make Spencer the optimistic, happy boy he is, who wants to work and wants to do that, is because of the way we treat the dogs with respect and dignity. We use rewards. We motivate them to do what we want, because let's face it, a lot of the tasks are for the human, but we say, okay, thanks for that. Here's something that I know you like, which with our dogs is usually food. So it's all positive, but there's a wealth of information. A lot of it's online, but then your PDA supports you to bring that alive. They meet you one-to-one, they do puppy classes, but you certainly have a nice program to follow, and skills to teach the puppy. As such, I have a short clip of one of our recent training videos. Claire's going to share it for us, and we'll just play it for maybe 3 minutes to get a flavour for it. We'll just check you can see it first of all. So Andy, could you nod? Can you see that on screen? Yeah, happy days. We'll play it for a second and check you can hear it as well. So we can't hear it. I wonder if you shared it with sound, Claire. Sometimes that can be a bit of a pickle. There's a button to press. Excuse me. If we don't get it, we can pop it in the chat, or we could send it in the sort of recap email afterwards. Sometimes you have to share it.
How would I get the sound on?
It's usually when, I'm used to being the one to share. Or have you got 3 buttons at the top that you can go to?
Yeah.
If you go up to few options, at the very, very top, there should be with sound.
Oh, yeah, there we
Onto the
go.
dog's collar.
Is that
The
helping?
cue for this behaviour is the
And,
lead
yeah,
being
that's
clipped
this.
onto the collar.
So if you go back to the start, Claire,
Let's
and
now
we'll
go
just
through the
there
3
for a few
steps.
minutes.
In
this
this
is what we
video,
provided.
Tony shows us how to teach our dogs to walk on a loose lead. He demonstrates the steps with a yellow golden retriever cross Labrador.
Hi, my name is Tony.
Tony stands in a large bright room with windows behind. His dog plays with a Kong at his feet. Caption: Tony, National Dog Training Lead.
Today we're going to teach your puppy how to walk on a loose lead. This is really important for the safety and comfort of your puppy, and it is something that the eventual guide dog owner will really value. Once we've been through all of the training steps, I'll talk to you about some top tips.
Caption: Prep, Loose lead walking.
First, let's look at what we're trying to achieve.
Tony speaks over footage of him and his dog demonstrating the finished behaviour. As he speaks, the aims of the exercise appear as text on screen.
The aim of this exercise is that your puppy will always keep their lead loose when walking. They will know to walk next to you when the lead is attached to their collar and should follow your movements, pace and direction.
A close-up of Tony clipping the lead onto the dog's collar.
The cue for this behaviour is the lead being clipped onto the collar. Let's now go through the 3 steps.
Caption: Step 1.
For the first part, all I'm going to do is attach the lead. And once I've attached the lead, I'm just going to start making a reward zone.
A circle appears on the floor, marking out an area about 2 metres in diameter around Tony's feet.
So this will be any place that's close to me as well. So all I'm going to start doing is just feeding for being in that reward zone. So I'm not asking any other behaviours of this dog. And it's important at all times to try and make sure that you have a loose lead. And if they go away, it's absolutely fine. And then as they come back, once again, they get that reward for being in that reward zone.
Okay, I think we'll end there, Claire.
Then
That
as we
was a
progress-
little taster.
The reward
So that's the sort of resources you get provided to teach the skills, and that gives you a little kind of peek into how we do things with our dogs. But I could chat for like 3 hours about this, so I better watch my timing. And I'll stop there, Claire, and hand over. There are questions coming through. I'll make sure they get answered at the end.
That's great. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for that insight
Pleasure.
into the role. And our PDAs are fantastic. They're really supportive, really understand the challenges that you may come across with the dogs, but also understand what a fantastic experience it is to see that dog grow to being the life changer, the lifesaver that Terry talked about. So thank you very much, Rebecca. And now I'd like to hand over to an actual puppy raiser, and that is our volunteer, Andrew. Andrew used to be Andy, but he's now Andrew because his dog's called Andy. So as you can imagine, there would be chaos in his house if he hadn't made that adjustment. So I'm going to hand over to Andrew and Andy now. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Andy, who likes to get in front of the camera quite a bit and wander about. He's 15-month-old now. I've had him since he was just over 7 weeks old, so he's just about ready to go through the next stage of training. I became a puppy raiser because my wife is registered blind and she's onto her 2nd guide dog now. And I retired about 3 years ago, and I used to work for one of the large supermarkets in a warehouse, and I was a warehouse manager. So my week used to be about 50, 60 hours, and I knew I couldn't go from retirement to doing absolutely nothing. And for years, we always talked about raising puppies for guide dogs to give a little bit back, because like Terry said, it's wonderful to see what to give a blind person back. So we looked into it, and because we already had a guide dog in the house, the first thing we did was a bit bored to make sure Jip, our current guide dog, was happy to have another dog in the house. So we tried 3 or 4 different types of dogs, different ages, different sexes, and he seemed quite happy. So we moved on with our first puppy. It was Carly. That was through lockdown and pandemic, so I had her for almost 2 years. But now pleased to say she's qualified and working with somebody in Manchester, partnered up and doing really well. And it was a brilliant experience. From the minute we got Carly, there was support and help there. It's like a little family with guide dogs. You meet all the other puppy raisers. We go for a coffee once a week when the weather's permitting. Catch up on all the tales, all the horror stories, all the happy stories. They're all there for help and advice, along with my puppy supervisor, who is Rebecca. So if we're having issues or problems, we're talking amongst ourselves and sort out issues. And like I say, it's just a release, because whatever I do in a day, Andy does. So you've got to have plenty of contingency plans in case Andy doesn't fancy it. But we go shopping together, we go to the pub together, we go to cafes together. Anywhere I go, Andy tends to go. So it gets you out and about. It gets you back onto public transport instead of using your car all the time. You'll jump on a bus or a train, even if it's just one stop or a couple of stops down the line, just to get them used to being out and about. You try and think of as many experiences as possible to give them. So you go hunting roadworks and traffic noise and things like that, and just slowly build it up. You do different shopping experiences. If you do take them on a shopping trip or somewhere, you've got to double the time you think it would take, because the amount of time you get stopped and asked questions and can I say hello and things like that is unbelievable. But it is really fulfilling. It's a wonderful family. The support and help's there, and the dogs are so pleasurable. They're absolutely unbelievable. Every dog is different. When we got the first one, Carly, we had a crate from Guide Dogs, and you bring them up with a crate. So Carly came along into the house. We popped the crate door open, give her a first meal in the crate. She settled down, popped her in. We were up and down like a newborn baby a couple of times during the night to let her out, and she was fine. Went back in about 8:30 in the morning, got up, fed her, absolutely wonderful. After about 4 weeks, Carly would pop into her crate and she'd wait there until you opened the kitchen door, and then she would say good morning, pop outside, do her business, have a morning breakfast, and then you'd go to work for the day with her. Andy was totally different. Andy didn't like his crate from day one, cried, got distressed. So he was upstairs, moved the crate upstairs. I used to sleep in the spare bedroom with him. And it got to the stage where we got to about 3 months. And we sought some advice, and he ended up sleeping with the guide dog called Jip. So Jip normally sleeps upstairs with Karen in the bedroom, but we'll put the pair of them in the kitchen. But I went through, well, like a newborn, 3 months sleep deprived, and usually I was just at my wits' end with them. I used to go to bed 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Karen used to look after the dogs. It was that bad. But every dog is different. But once I put him in with Jib, he's been absolutely brilliant. He has got the run of the house during the night now, but the pair of them just settle down together, go to sleep together. And normally, if you roll over just to check the time, he's by your bedside. Is it time to get up? Is it time to get up? So we're trying not to wake up at 5 o'clock to check the time. We just try and hang on till about 7:30, 8 o'clock, where he's quite happy to wait until he gets his breakfast then. But every dog is different, and they all bring you pleasure. I mean, since I've been working with guide dogs now for 3.5 years, the amount of variations in different dogs and different tails you have is unbelievable. But they're all great. They're all good tails. And like Rebecca said, if you need a break, you need a rest, you've got a whole day to go, there's always support out there, and everybody will help you. That's my bit.
That's brilliant, Andrew. I keep wanting to call you Andy. That's brilliant, Andrew. Thank you so much for giving us some insight into what it's like caring for our little 4-legged friends. So if anybody is interested in becoming a puppy raiser after what you've heard today, then you can visit our website, which is guidedogs.org.uk/puppy raiser, where you can apply for the role. If you're still a little bit unsure, I have some questions, and we're going to go through some of the great questions you've posted in just a moment. Then you can talk to somebody by going to volunteer@guidedogs.org.uk or contacting 0345 143 0191. And what I'll do is pop those into the chat for everybody. I'd really like to thank Terry and Andrew and Rebecca for sharing their stories today and telling us all about puppy raising. It's been absolutely wonderful to hear from you. And now we're going to go over to questions. So what I suggest I do is go into the chat, and I know that Rebecca's already really answered some of these, but I'm just going to go through them again just in case anyone doesn't have access to the chat. So that we can make sure everybody has the information. So the first one is it preferred that you have some previous puppy experience?
And I've said, no, it's not essential criteria. There's no denying it can help, but there's enough support that it's not an entry blocker. And I have some very successful puppy raisers that have never had a dog before.
Okay, brilliant. Can you take on puppy training even if you have another dog at home?
Again, many of my puppy raisers do. We say, though, that dog is a family member and everybody in the family has to be on board. So we will come out and have a chat and assess their temperament to check that it's going to enrich their lives, because they, at that stage, the most important dog in the equation. But if everything's good, then yeah, it can really, really help. Our dogs do need to be handled one-to-one. So if you were on your own and you had a pet dog, you would have to take our dog out on lead on your own. You couldn't have two dogs on lead by yourself. If there are other family members, though, they could have the pet dog and you could have the guide dog. So that's quite a restriction, I understand, for some people.
Okay, brilliant. Are there ever any dogs that simply can't be trained to be guide dogs? What's the success failure rate?
Yeah, of course, we're dealing with living sentient beings, so there's never going to be 100% success rate. That would be bizarre. I don't know the percentages. I have to apologise. If we find out, I will send it on. But yeah, absolutely. If a dog is not deemed suitable, because we are so dog centred, we will respect that dog, and they will get possibly repurposed to the likes of a buddy dog, possibly rehomed. And the puppy raiser generally has the first refusal in that situation, and reasons being, it could be temperament, it could be a dog that just isn't resilient enough, and we would never put them into the situations that a guide dog must go into, or it could be things like skin. They've got skin issues, or God forbid they've maybe got elbow dysplasia that gets discovered. So there are scenarios where that happens. It is, as someone made the point, really, really disappointing for the puppy raiser, but you know, it's part of the journey. It's part of working with animals. We've got to still keep doing it. And I would hazard a guess it's the vast majority of dogs that do make it.
Brilliant. Do we always use Labradors? We don't, no. Do we, Rebecca? No.
We do German Shepherds, Golden Retrievers, Labradors, crosses of all three. We have a curly coat cross on my scheme at the minute. Some Labradoodles, not very many. No Jack Russells, that's what I've got in my house. There's a reason for that. But no, there's a variety of breeds.
Okay, we've got a message from Anne-Marie asking if it's possible to know if we're recruiting in her area. I don't know off the top of my head, Anne-Marie, but if you want to contact volunteer@guidedogs.org.uk, they'll be able to let you know. Is 2 years an average period to fully train the dog? Can you maintain contact with the dog once they've gone to their home?
2 years, I believe so. So about 14 months with us, another 6 months. That would be a minimum, I imagine. Do cockatoos make good guide dogs? Pass. Certainly, they've got the enthusiasm. Can you keep
wouldn't.
As long as there's no squirrels around. Yeah, can you keep in contact? Certainly, in terms of when they go into training, there's a formal communication, so you get updates, you get phone calls from the trainer. After that, it's very much down to the guide dog owner, and that's obviously respecting their privacy. They may not want to keep in touch, and we can't force that, nor would we. So whilst they're within the training, yes, after that, it's an unknown.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take this one if that's all right, Rebecca.
Of
So
course.
Melanie said it must be so hard to say goodbye to the puppy you've raised. I think I'd be worried about forming too much of an emotional attachment. I've worked for guide dogs for nearly 20 years now and come across lots and lots of puppy raisers in the course of my work. And yes, some people do struggle with that. Obviously, you've built up a bond with the dog, but there are people who've had 15, 20, 24 dogs even across their time volunteering from us. And I think what sustains them is that they know that the dog that they've helped with the development of is going to go to someone like Terry and be that absolute life changer. And if you continue, then obviously you're going to encounter lots of dogs who are going to kind of give you that that fulfillment and that joy of knowing that you've made that difference to someone's life. So I'm not going to lie and say it's easy, because it isn't. When the puppies are collected to go to the next stage of training, the person who comes around to collect them isn't always the most popular. But knowing that you've made that difference, I think, is what sustains people and makes them realise that it's worth that. And of course, there will be, if you continue after your first puppy, there'll be other puppies who come along who will also steal your heart. So has anybody got anything to add to that? Andrew, because you've obviously been in that position.
Yeah, it's exactly like you say. You know, it's hard on the day. On the week, we always say is go out and buy something expensive and treat yourself, book a holiday or something. But it's up to you when you're ready for your next pup. So there is a crossover. Sometimes you can get a new pup before the old one goes, or you can virtually do it within days. Or like I always like to do, I like to have a couple of weeks off to do all the gloss painting around the house and get the jobs done. It's never easy, but once you see what they're going to do, you know, it's all worthwhile. And we're quite lucky. Our last pup, Carly, went to Manchester, and through her training, we got in touch and we got to go and see her finally pass out. And then the girl that's got her in Manchester is best friends with Karen on Facebook. So in touch regular, we'll get pictures of her working and things like that and see her life going on. Karen's current guide dog, Jip, his puppy walkers live up in Aberdeen, and anytime they come south, they come down and see us and stop with us and see Jip, you know, and he might retire back to Aberdeen to them when his day comes, when he gets to about 10, 11-year-old. So he might end up retiring and going back where he started, which is nice.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Andrew. You specify that a puppy raiser is at home all the time. Does that mean people who work aren't able to be puppy raisers? Rebecca.
Yeah, you certainly don't need to be home in 24/7. Once puppy is settled and once you've practiced a little bit of alone time, you will start to go out and leave them for a period. Obviously, there's a maximum period, I think 3, maybe 4 hours once they're old enough. Working from home is a bit of a question mark because, especially with a young puppy, very, very difficult to work from home and have a puppy that needs you when they need you. So that would be taken on a one-on-one basis. It can happen, it does happen, but it might be that fostering is more suitable if you're working from home. But get in touch and we'll see.
Okay, thank you. We have a message. Is there someone I can contact in Liverpool to join? I'm at home most of the day with my son's assisted dog. I've popped in the chat a number to ring, where if you phone our volunteering office, they'll be able to put you in contact with somebody who'll be able to have a chat with you. Angela says, is it a good idea to try fostering first?
We pretty much insist on it in most cases. That's what the process would be. You apply, and if we feel confident to move forward, you start by fostering as many dogs as we see you need to, usually just 1 or 2. And that actually, from the earlier question, that can be where people realise they broke their heart handing the fostering dog back after a week, it's not for them, and that's the time to decide that. Or yeah, that was great, give me more, I want my own puppy.
That's lovely, thanks. Lovely story from Roberta, who talks about nursing a cat who had diabetes. That's lovely, absolutely heartwarming to see that. I think we've already addressed the Cockapoos make good guide dogs. I have one. He's just left the room, and I'd say probably a bit too mischievous, yes. We've got someone who has an assistance dog who's a Cocker Spaniel, who's amazing. Do you get to visit with the dog and the owner afterwards to check in? I think we've already covered that, and that's kind of at the discretion of the guide dog owner because of rules like GDPR. Roberta's cousin's had guide dogs for many years. That's wonderful. That's lovely to hear. Just to say then, underneath those questions, I've popped in the email for our volunteering office, also the phone number for that, and the email details as well. Roberta's asking, do the dogs adjust okay? I'm presuming that's kind of when they've come to you and then when they're moving on to the next stage, yeah?
I don't know if Terry has something to add to that, because he obviously will have taken a dog from, you know, from a boarder previously.
Yeah, they settle in really, really well and really quickly, and I think it's the way that they have been raised in that they kind of live for the day. So I've got 2 pet Irish Wolfhound dogs that are huge, and Spencer actually walks underneath. It just shows how big they are. But actually, they love each other. They play together. They go out for free runs together, and he just instantly slotted in. Really, very, very clingy to start with, of course, and by my side constantly. But that's just how it should be, and that's just how lovely it is. But yeah, settling, no problems at all, and I think that's all down to the training and the way in which they have been raised through the process. Really, they adapt so well to new situations.
That's it, lovely, Terry. Yeah, and you know, we won't rush it when they're young. We don't like to have too much change, but once they get to a certain age, we'll look at them and go, okay, you've not naturally had a chance to foster out. Let's actually go and place you somewhere for a few weeks to give you that flexibility. And it comes back to the breeds. We breed dogs that have that optimistic. They just adore people. They are more flexible. So yeah.
Okay, we've got another question. Are the upfront costs made by puppy raisers then reimbursed? And I've popped in the chat that we have, there is an allowance, a monthly allowance. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how much that is. I'm really sorry, Chris. But if you pop an email to our volunteer at Guide Dogs, they'll be able to let you know how much that is. And then we've got a question, is a lot of the training online or in a local class? I think it's a mixture, Rebecca, isn't it? And Andrew?
Yeah. I would say the majority is provided online. I'm there though, I visit roughly once a month to show things practically. There are puppy classes, but they're usually on average about once a month as well. If online is a barrier, we still would like you to get in touch, and we still will find ways around it. But certainly it's moved more online recently. And the smoothest process is that you could access that, and that is, it's really nice resources, as you've seen. But also, like Andrew said, puppy raisers meet up as well and chat, so there's that social aspect and they can practice skills together. Yeah,
brilliant, thank you. So we've got another question here. I'd love to do this when I can retire. We'd love you to do it when you retire. Is there an age limit for puppy raisers? So the answer to that is that there isn't an age limit. Usually our policy is that when someone gets to 80, we need to ask a few extra questions for insurance to make sure you're all safe and protected, but no, there is no age limit. We've got puppy raisers right across the spectrum. And also this person, I'm sorry, I haven't got your name. You work in schools, get lots of school holidays. Could you be a holiday fosterer? Yes, of course you could. We would love you to apply to do that. And to do that, if you contact volunteering at Guide Dogs, if you'd like some more information, or if you pop onto the website with the address I've popped into the chat, you can apply for puppy fosterer via there. That's brilliant. What time scale is the waiting list for puppy raiser or fosterer? I presume that means from when you've kind of gone through the recruitment process to when you actually receive a dog. I don't think that's particularly long at the moment. We do have a lot of puppies coming through, and we have kind of phases of puppies coming through each month. So can't put a precise figure on that because it depends which geographical team you're in, but you shouldn't be waiting that long to get one. You could also apply and say you're going on holiday in, I don't know, the end of May, beginning of June, and you could apply and say, right, okay, I can take a puppy after I get back from holiday. That's fine as well. We've got a Miss Terry story. Apology, I was on another call. That's fine, Carolyn, because we're going to, I think this has been recorded and will be available to people. So you've not missed Terry.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions? They were great questions. Kept us on our toes. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for all of the time and how carefully you've listened. Oh, we've got another one. I don't have a garden, but a secure backyard and plenty of fields around. Yes, secure backyard, as long as it's private and as long as it's secure, they're the two key things. Oh, and thank you very much. Fantastic. And someone's going to email. Great, thank you. Lovely to get so much positive feedback. Thank you. I'm just seeing them pop up. I'm not a very good multitasker. I do apologise. So yeah, thank you all so much. And as we've said, if you're interested, please do get in touch. So I'm going to hand back to Denise now.
Oh, thank you so much. And on behalf of Restless, a really big thank you to Claire, Rebecca, Terry and Spencer, Andrew and Andy for a really interesting and insightful event. And of course, thank you to the Restless members for their participation this afternoon. It's really appreciated. So as Claire has mentioned, the actual event has been recorded. It will be on our site within the next few days, and you'll find it under the drop-down, community drop-down right at the bottom under events. And so any information that you need will be on there, including the email address for guide dogs that Claire's mentioned, the telephone number and the web address as well. So much appreciated again, and have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you.